welcome to another episode with me, Andrea Dre Meller. And I'm going to share today some techniques about grounding and shielding your energy. So I have many friends, I have clients, family members, people I'm connected to in the business community that sometimes express that there's maybe there's things that are stressing them, or certain examples of people kind of feeding off their energy. Maybe like an energy vampire, or just somebody who kind of appears even at the grocery store and is kind of notices that you're open and just starts telling you their life story. How many times have you been somewhere and somebody has expressed or shared with you things where you're like, whoa, like I only said hi to you. So what I'm going to share today is just one form of grounding and shielding. This is not all of it. It's just a very like a helpful kind of tool that you can use, right? It's just one tool that you can use, or a few different things. So I just want to first start by saying, like, we're humans living in a body, so we're living in a human experience, no matter if we're like these spiritual beings and souls that are, inhabiting a human body. So we have to look at like what our experience is in terms of like our human level. And so we have this, so we have being a human, and then kind of as a part of being a human is also our emotional experience. And then we have an energetic experience. And so I'm just going to speak to how those three things really come together to create your whole experience, right? So in terms of like human, like our humanness, I want to speak to boundaries that we can set in all of these areas. And maybe you've heard the phrase empath, maybe you haven't, maybe that resonates, maybe it doesn't. But for those of us who are highly sensitive or who identify with being an empath, sometimes it feels like our energy can be really open. We have a lot of compassion, we care about people, and so people read the energy of that. They can sense when, just like you can sense, like if you've ever walked into a room, say, you've walked into a room where there's like a lot of tension and you're like, ooh, I can feel the tension in the air. It feels like really thick and dense, and it just feels off. And so energy is, we're always carrying energy with us. So even when we're going to the grocery store, say our energy might be not dense. It might be open, and it might be inviting. And there are certain times where we really want that. And then there's other times where maybe we want to kind of protect ourselves a little bit more. And we should always protect our energy, because nobody else will. So we have to be really mindful about our own energy and protecting that for ourselves. So in terms of the human level, the way that we can create and set boundaries is by our words. Like if we're, somewhere where maybe we are not in the space to really chat with somebody, or we don't feel like having a conversation, then that's when we can use like a nonviolent communication statement of using our words that says, thank you for sharing that with me, but I'm really just not in a space right now. I'm feeling whatever your feeling is. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I would really appreciate it if I could just kind of be in my bubble, right? Like, please stop talking to me. Whichever words feel great for you to say to a person, maybe a stranger. So we kind of know that on a cognitive level, right? Like as human beings, we've been in situations like that before, and we've used our words. Um, and then there's this emotional level that we have, which is underneath, right? Like we don't always express what our emotions are outside of our, like in our human body, right? Even though we feel them, we don't, every time we're sad, and maybe if we're in public and we're sad, we don't cry. Sometimes we might, but um, but you get my point. There's this emotional level as well, and that's the level where we really need to check in with how are we feeling. So it kind of informs. The emotions are the things that kind of help to inform us of what is coming up for us in the human experience and whether or not it's okay for us or not. So if somebody starts talking to me and I feel annoyed or anxious or overwhelmed or something else, angry, um, you name it, insert it into that blank, fill in the blank there, then that's my signal for like how I want to respond in that situation. And I can use my human response, right? Like I can use my words and respond as a human. But then there's something else that's there, that is the energy. And that's underneath the human exterior, like what we see when we're in a common space with other people, what you're seeing from me right now. And then underneath that, right, like is that emotional level. And kind of underneath that emotional level is this energetic level. And the energy of a situation, I said, like, close your eyes and think about a place or a time in your life where you walked into the room, and whether it was something that was vibrant or dense or whatever the experience was, just think and feel into what was that experience like. You walked in, you felt that energy. You maybe didn't, no one maybe even said anything. Maybe it was somber. Maybe it was happy. So you kind of read that energy. Well, people are reading your energy all the time. So you're reading other people's energy all the time as well. And not everybody who approaches you is an energy vampire. I kind of use that phrase loosely because I think it's used quite a lot for people who maybe aren't vampires but are just having a hard time and need some support. I mean, there are people who can be vampires in your life who every time you hang out with them you feel drained and things like that. But I don't think everybody who maybe tells you too much is necessarily a vampire. So what I want to share is the energetic level, this energy of how to clear that and how to tap into it. So you want to make sure that you clear the energy for yourself before you shield anything. You want to, every day, I would recommend doing this practice when you wake up. You wake up, maybe you wash your face, or like something that you're doing that gets you ready for the day. Showering is the best time to do this, actually. So when you're clearing energy, you want to make sure that you're like energy from anything, right? Like residual from our family, from our business, from just like if we had a bad day yesterday, like we want to clear that energy for ourselves. So in the morning when you wake up, you can get a shower, you can wash your face, you can set the intention, right? Like you can also do something like this, like an action like this. But what you want to do is you want to set the intention. I am clearing any energy that is not mine, right? Like you're washing your face. I'm clearing any energy away from my field that is not mine. I am, fanning out. I'm clearing any energy away. You can clap. Clapping is also like another really good tool because it breaks up the density of the energy. I mean, we can all agree that energy is real. It does exist. Even though this may seem, if a little bit on the woo side, but there's science behind anything that is, kind of deals with energy as well. So just setting that intention of I'm clearing the energy that is not mine, clearing my field of the energy that's not mine. And then you want to set the intention that I am opening up my space to my own energy, right? And kind of visualize yourself. Some people visualize themselves in a bubble, but you want to clear yourself before you get into any kind of energy bubble, because if you haven't cleared yourself, then you're, potentially like ballooning yourself in this bubble with some of that funky energy. So I'm, setting the intention. I might close my eyes, take a few deep breaths, and then envision like a white light Glinda, the Good Witch of the North type bubble around you, very sparkly and golden white light, and just kind of picturing that around your body. And then I don't necessarily shield. Some people will recommend like shielding, but what I do is I ask that if any, the bubbling is in essence partially shielding, but if what I tend to do is set the intention that if there is somebody trying to come into this space, my bubble, that their energy gets transmuted back to the earth rather than it bouncing back to them, because sometimes you can create a bounce back of energy, and a lot of this is subconscious. A lot of this is we're not thinking about our energy. Most people aren't thinking about their energy most of the time. They're just living their experience. So when we do something with like return it back to the sender, then we're like pushing it back to the person, and they might be sending it right back to us. So it kind of boomerangs back. So I rather just send it down to the earth. And you can set that intention as well. Like when you set your bubble of energy, anything that is not mine, that's trying to come into this space, that is not of my best and highest good, please send it into the earth. And just in a visual, you can imagine like any energy that you wouldn't want to be around you just kind of trickling off like water or something like that down into the ground. And when you set the intention for yourself of that, it helps to clear that space energetically. It helps to close your own energy off a little bit so that you're not in the grocery store and people are talking to you. Of course, there's times where I do this and I still have to use my words. Like this doesn't negate or bypass or like take away your human experience. You're still very much a human. And energy is only one part of your human experience, but it is a valid part. Like if you're not doing this stuff already, that it could be helpful, like in addition to obviously using your words and politely setting that boundary. And depending on what the situation is or the scenario, maybe it's it calls for something bigger than polite energy, but most of the time like a no thanks can just suffice. But it's good to kind of know all the layers and levels of these things in terms of your experience, so that when we're going out in the world, we're not collecting a lot of other people's stuff, because that can happen. And when you know that that's happening, how you feel in your body is we start to feel tired, like drained, also maybe anxious, or like feelings that aren't ours, like things that you feel that you're like, I actually don't know why I would feel that way right now, because it's likely not your own. And one of the things that you can do to ground and to like check in with yourself, I like to give people practical tools that they can use when they're out and about, is to drink some water. and just recite that same mantra. I'm clearing any energy that isn't mine from my field. And, thanking your energy. I find that this is a really helpful technique, and I started using it because I was getting really overwhelmed when I was teaching. I was a specialist at a school, and I would just come home very drained because my energy was so open. I had so much compassion for the kids, but what was happening is my energy was leaking and their energy was leaking, and it was just kind of like an energetic mess. So I wanted to share that, and drop me a comment below. Let me know how that works out for you. And don't forget to like and subscribe to my page.